You're listening to Superpowers of the Soul on the Superpower Up Podcast, the show that elevates superpowers to the divine.
Hello, everyone, and I'm Jennifer Urezzio, and I'm a superpower expert and the founder of Soul Language, and this is Superpowers of the Soul. And I have to tell you, of all of the people, and there's been a lot of people that I've interviewed, these two are crazy in a good way. It's Malcolm and Simone Collins, and we're going to be talking about today the ownership of your beliefs and identity as a function of consciousness. Welcome, you two.
Hello.
We are so excited to be here with you today.
You guys just crack me up. So, I start with the standard question, which I have a feeling it's not going to be so standard with you, is, what do you each consider the superpower of your soul?
Oh, I don't have one of those.
You don't have a soul? You don't have a superpower?
I was fortunate enough to be born without the burden of a soul.
Well, congratulations. Go for it.
Or superpowers.
Superpower is definitely repeated blunt force. I am as dumb of as a bag of hammers, but I am really persistent, and I'm very pleased about that.
Oh, I love how persistent she is. She always outworks any problem.
I love that. I mean, I think that, to kind of be in, this kind of consciousness or transformation or even ownership or responsibility of the life you create, you've got to be committed and you've got to be persistent, because if you're not going to do it, no one else is.
Exactly.
So I know, Simon, that I know, Malcolm, that you don't have a soul, but do you have a sacred purpose?
No, I do. And I do have a purpose, and it's something that I'm so passionate about doing these days, which is just to try to create an environment in this world where when someone admits they're wrong because they've been presented with whatever evidence form they value, that's not a bad thing. That saying, I was wrong about this and I've changed my view on this subject is not a bad thing. And that's why we started our nonprofit and that's what all the money for our book goes to that nonprofit, because it's like our big thing these days. And we think that a lot of problems that, our society is facing, and not just in the US, but around the world, we live in a lot of countries, is so many people find it so hard to just say, I'm wrong.
Yeah. I call that consciously transparent. I always say to clients, listen, I love when you tell me that it doesn't resonate or I'm wrong, because you're tuning within, like, go for it, and I think that being, growing up in corporate America as I did, and then doing this, weird woo-woo soul language, connect to your soul stuff, right? It's like I bring the tangible and the intangible together. And, there's a difference between ownership, and blame, and judging someone because of a misstep or a mistake, or, they just didn't have all of the knowledge, or because sometimes we just screw up. So I love what you're saying. Simone, do you have another answer for that? You guys work as a collaborative team, but is there something around your secret purpose that you want to share with the audience?
It's the broader element of what Malcolm's talking about, which is getting people to think intentionally and actually think for the first time. Say, okay, is this what I truly believe? Is this what I truly value? And what evidence do I use to decide what's right and wrong?
Yeah. I think, so many of us are, I joke around because, Facebook is such my nemesis, right? But so, it twitches when people go, okay, so here's my book cover. Tell me what all of you think. I'm like, why are you doing your life by survey? Like, what do you care about? Like, it's about you. It's about your energy. It's what you're putting into the equation. Like, that's consciousness responding to the world, and how you want to respond to everything. So, what has been like that common theme for both of you about, what you have learned, that big common theme? Mine has been, that I am worthy. That's what my soul has shared with me the most. But what's been that common theme that your innards have kept hitting home with you?
What surprised me the most as we've gone through the process of figuring out the philosophy of this book and finding the best ways to have people find what really matters to them and develop those heuristics that help them become their truest self, is some of the biggest indications that you're doing the right thing is you're offended by something, or you're otherwise deeply uncomfortable and nervous, which is not usually what I've always grown up hearing was, if it feels right, that means you're on the right track. And what we've learned, at least from our research, is if it feels right, you're probably doing it totally wrong.
You're just masturbating. You're just masturbating your ego. You're just sitting there jacking off if it feels right. When it feels wrong, when it feels uncomfortable, when you're offended by something, that's when you're improving and you're engaging information that you probably don't already have.
Yeah, and that's beautifully said. So the way I've always said that to clients is look, when the not enough comes up and you're feeling cranky and things are feeling icky, that's the moment that gold is happening, because you're turning to something bigger. And I think that so often, people think that things feel good, but what they're really feeling is that low hum of not discontent. So it's that hum of everything is just fine. I'm comfortable, but there's no heart in it. And so it feels good because nothing feels bad, but it doesn't feel great. So it's just this weird hum of kind of blah.
And that's like the lives of 99.9% of people, we feel.
I can't imagine a scarier feeling, just to become suffocated by that hum.
Oh. It's so funny because when I was in corporate America and I was doing PR, I wasn't allowed to talk to media, because I was allowed to talk to media because I would tell them the truth. I wasn't allowed to talk to clients because I would tell them the truth, right? And so a couple of years ago, I said to my best friend, I go, now people pay me to tell them the truth, and it was that I couldn't fit into that box in corporate America because I was that big, shiny neon sign that says, are you kidding? This is marbles. What are we this is not life and death. This is about marbles. And it became this, this kind of push-pull. And with the media, they're like, it's not about marbles, but we're going to promote marbles. So how do we make the marble look the best, right? And so it's that low level of, I think, that people are just kind of on this autopilot because they desperately want to fit in and they're afraid not to.
I love the way you worded that so much. The concept of an autopilot is something that we focus so much on in our book. And what are the autopilots that people are really running on? And sort of our hypothesis is it isn't always about fitting in. Most people's autopilot are just some sort of a trope, some sort of archetype they have of who they want to be. Whether it's, the hippie adventurer living in a bunch of different countries or the good conservative dad. And so much of what they try to do, or the marble king of Pennsylvania, is about optimizing that self-image.
I'm laughing because I'm like, I never had that skill. I was just all kind of wonderfully conscious and a mess, and sometimes really angry, which didn't suit me. But I never could kind of fit into, a role. When and we're going to talk about this more after the break. But I remember my 20th birthday when I came down. I was still living at home because I went to college in New York City, and I lived at home. And I came down. I was like, okay, I'm 20. I got 20 years to get married, have a couple kids, get divorced, and then find out what I want to do. And I was like, yeah, I don't see me doing any of that, Mom. And I didn't, it's not the kind of frame that I thought of myself, or even, I didn't even know what frame I fit. So before we break, tell everyone how to get in touch with you and learn more about you and this amazing book.
We strongly encourage you to check out The Pragmatist Guide to Life by searching for it on Amazon. You can also visit our website, pragmatist.guide, where we have plenty of resources for people reading the book, such as a form where you can submit a friend's name and have a friend receive a free copy of the book so you can read it together.
Or just email us. We're always happy to chat. We're not like that big a deal.
You guys are like me. You answer your own email. You pick up your own phone.
At pragmatist.guide, okay? That will get me.
Or even
I love that.
At pragmatist.guide, yeah.
Okay, everyone, you've been listening to Malcolm and Simone Collins, and the topic today is ownership of your beliefs and identity, a function of consciousness. And this is Jennifer Urezzio, and this is Superpowers of the Soul. Stay with us, and we will be back shortly.
Are you here to change the world? Do you talk about things like vibration, frequency, awakening, and consciousness? Are you pretty sure you have superpowers? The Superpower Net is unlike normal coaching programs and conscious communities. We provide training, intuitive guidance, peer-to-peer learning, intensive one-on-one coaching, and a high vibrational network of people just like you. When you join the net, you get 24/7 access to a collaborative group of people who support you as you master your personal power and unlock your superpowers. If you're ready to use your superpowers to change the world, then join the Superpower Net today. Visit superpowerexperts.com/thenet to learn more.
Okay, everyone, welcome back. I'm Jennifer Urezzio, and this is Superpowers of the Soul. I'm on the phone with Malcolm and Simone Collins, and the topic today is ownership of your beliefs and identity, a function of consciousness. And we've been briefly chatting about your book, but just for those that haven't read it or are going to read it, what's the kind of the main premise of the book?
The main premise of the book is we as humans have control over what we believe and who we are. Yet so few people really exercise control over those things. And even the people who do, they're not really allowed to talk about them in polite society. You know, you're not allowed to talk about your deepest, most controversial beliefs or who you want to be as a person among polite company, which means that a lot of people don't really get the chance to develop those aspects of themselves and those most important questions. And what we wanted to create was a guide to developing answers to those questions that wouldn't push you towards any one answer or another.
Beautiful. You know, if, you know, and the company that I associate with, we kind of get to do that. Most people would call that, you know, spiritual woo-woo, but that's, you know, the kind of the community I play in most of the time. But I do have those polite societies of conversations where, you know, I can see where, you know, telling people my, you know, deep, dark, and, you know, my ultimate dream is kind of frowned upon. What is, you know, one of the kind of, if somebody wants to practice starting to experience that, what would you suggest?
Well, of course, we'd suggest reading our book. And one of the reasons why it's helpful and why I genuinely would suggest it is that we start off the book by helping people find what we call their objective functions, which is the one or two or three things or more in life that you wish to maximize, be it happiness or freedom or bacon. I don't really care. We don't care as long as you show your work and you really thought through what you want to maximize. And it's hard to know what you want to maximize in life without seeing like a massive buffet of all of the options. And what we do is present that buffet
and then explain why all of them are terrible.
Yeah, like it's like walking along a buffet, honestly, with like your pessimistic aunt who's like, oh, that's probably got salmonella in it. And didn't you know that eating mushrooms that are not prepared is going to cause cancer? And so, you know, it's basically that. But these thought experiments are things like, let's say you want to maximize perfection. You want to be the most perfect version of yourself that you possibly can be. Well, then we'll ask you, okay, if I could push a button and make you instantly perfect, would you accept that? And a lot of people will think about that really carefully and think, you know, actually, I won't accept that because I can't enjoy perfection. I can't value perfection that I have not earned. But that changes what you want to maximize, right? I mean, it means that you might actually value earning perfection more than you value perfection itself. Yeah, the struggle. So it's things like that that we really encourage someone to start with, because it's very hard to build on anything else, you know, to decide who you want to believe, or be, and who you want, what you want to believe.
And the second book is about who you are, right? You know, so many people, like, they get angry and they're like, oh, I had no control over that. That's just, you know, who I am. But who you are is you're like a sticky ball that's been rolling on a dirty sidewalk, and somebody's like, you can clean that off and put glitter on it if you want. And they're like, no, it's who I am.
So what you guys are saying is that you're kind of like the modern day Ernest Holmes.
Goodness, I have no idea who Ernest Holmes is.
You might want to pick up a book by Ernest Holmes. Ernest Holmes looked at all of the world religions and really studied, and he pulled out all the best parts. And I could sum up the teaching in one word, what you think you are. And so he's always going to keep bringing people back to reworking their beliefs and creating from a sustainable rather than from unsustainable, or creating from a belief that isn't really what they believe. They just think they believe it, but there's something deeper there. So what I'm saying, everyone who's ever picked up an Ernest Holmes or New Thought at all, this book sounds like a modern day version of that. And this book also sounds like it will support all the other stuff you're doing. And what I really love about you guys is that you're really tangible, because, we could, if we're not making it integrative in our everyday lives, then we're just sitting on our couch thinking our big thoughts and nothing gets transformed or changed. So I'm pretty impressed. And I'm not one of those people that's easily impressed, by the way.
Shucks, howdy, Jennifer. We're really chuffed here.
So what was you touched briefly on this, but how did you guys get here? How did that happen? You didn't wake up one day and went, okay, we're going to do this. How did the ownership of who you are and maximizing what you want to achieve create this work?
Well, it all started with a very strange dating debacle in 2012, which I won't go into, but long story short, I met Malcolm and he sort of forced me into thinking about these issues we've been discussing and questioning what I believe in and what I value. And I found that despite the fact that at age 24, I was a very conventionally successful and quote unquote happy person, I wasn't really aligned with any of my true values once I actually took time to parse them out. And I was working rather counterintuitively towards my goals.
This dating debacle is so much stranger and so much more colorful than she makes it sound in that short. She was a virgin. She'd only kissed one person. She decided that she wanted to be that way for the rest of her life, but she didn't want, when she was 80, people to be like, oh, wait, so you never even tried hanging out with guys?
Or you never even experienced love.
Right. And so she's like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to experience love. I'm going to have my heart broken. I'm going to do it in 3 months. And I'm going to develop a points-based system to make sure it happens, where I need to accumulate a certain number of dating points every period of time. It was ridiculous.
Okay, wait 1 second. Why is that not a book?
Oh, we thought about doing it, but at the same time, I feel like the world has enough books about, it'd just be a modern Bridget Jones's diary.
We're working on a relationship book right now, though.
Yeah, no, it's actually not. It's much more deep than that, because it's almost like that was the catalyst of you, you starting this huge empire of sorts. That's cool.
It was real. And I had these hilarious diary entries that Malcolm eventually found and read. Well, because I gave them to him, that someday we may publish. But we found that the message that we wanted to give something useful to people. And that's why we ended up writing this book. And that's why the next book we're writing, which is about relationships, is also very much a guide.
Actually, the first book we wrote was a converted version of those diary entries, but we gave them to a friend and she said they were boring. So then we wrote another book.
And I think she said that they were too embarrassing for us to release.
Okay. So I'm seeing the different sides of the coin here. One says boring and one says, no, it's too embarrassing. I love it. So, wow, and I know this is a kind of not a polite society question.
We love those.
It's not that sexy. Don't get all up in it. But how old are you now?
I'm 30 and he's 31. So it's been just about 6 years since we first met.
Wow. You guys have accomplished, a huge. So I know from talking to you and reading your stuff that there's also this kind of, for lack of a better word, you have a foundation. There's a charity aspect of this. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So many people in the self-help, self-development space, they're in it because they're trying to promote their own brand. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what it means is ultimately, if somebody has only been successful as a self-help writer, they're presenting a very specific kind of advice. And we are on the completely opposite end of that scale. We don't care at all about making money from these books. All of the money goes to a nonprofit. We've been very successful entrepreneurs. We run a number of companies right now. And for us, these books are just about a hobby and trying to do something meaningful with our lives outside of running this travel company.
And the foundation comes down to what Malcolm brought up at the very beginning, his goal, which is to get people to question their beliefs and think very intentionally about what is true.
I love that. Okay, so before I ask the last question, how do people reach out to you? How do they get in touch with you? How do they get more of, M&S Collins, which, I want to go S&M Collins, but I won't.
We call it Malmone.
So if you want some more Malmone, you can just email me at malcolm@pragmatist.guide.
Or Simone@pragmatist.guide. Or hello@pragmatist.guide, which goes to both of us.
And just tell us whatever you want. You want to talk with us? We're happy to talk. You want free copies of the book? I'm happy to send them to you. I don't care.
I love that. Well, this has been, I have to say, a really fun conversation and just very serious and lighthearted and, really good radio. So thank you so much, both of you, for participating today. And if you liked what you heard, you can connect with me and all of the other experts in the Superpowered Net at superpowerexperts.com/the net to find out more. Thank you all. And really, go out, find out what you believe in. Go out and get this book. I mean, it's freaking awesome. So that's all I have to say about that. Okay, everyone, be well.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower Quiz today.